All right, our identifying information. This is called the audience hall. And another word for audience hall is Apadana by Darius and Xerxes in Persepolis, Iran. And this is Persian, 520 to 465 BCE, made out of limestone. All right, so instead of breaking up this artwork, because it's an architecture and it's also a culture at the same time, we're gonna break this up into these four ideas. We're gonna talk about the Persian Empire, what Persepolis is, what the Apadana functioned as, and then what the reliefs depict. All right, so we're going to watch the crash course art history video, just 2 minutes, where he's talking about the Persian Empire.
Let's start with the Persian Empire, which became the model for pretty much all land-based empires throughout the world, except for, wait for it, the Mongols. Much of what we know about the Persians and their empire comes from an outsider writing about them, which is something we now call history. And one of the first true historians was Herodotus, whose famous book, The Persian Wars, talks about the Persians quite a bit. Now, the fact that Herodotus was Greek is important because it introduces us to the idea of historical bias, but more on that in a second. So the Persian Achaemenid dynasty, Achaemenid? Hold on.
Achaemenid or Achaemenid.
They're both right? I was right twice? Right, so the Persian Achaemenid or Achaemenid dynasty was founded in 539 BCE by King Cyrus the Great. Cyrus took his nomadic warriors and conquered most of Mesopotamia, including the Babylonians, which ended a sad period in Jewish history called the Babylonian exile, thus ensuring that Cyrus got great press in the Bible. But his son Darius I was even greater. He extended Persian control east to our old friend the Indus Valley, west to our new friend Egypt, and north to crash course newcomer Anatolia. By the way, there were Greeks in Anatolia called Ionian Greeks who will become relevant shortly. So even if you weren't Persian, the Persian Empire was pretty dreamy. For one thing, the Persians ruled with a light touch, like conquered kingdoms were allowed to keep their kings and their elites as long as they pledged allegiance to the Persian king and paid taxes, which is why the Persian king was known as the King of Kings. Plus, taxes weren't too high, and the Persians improved infrastructure with better roads, and they had this Pony Express-like mail service, of which Herodotus said, "They are stayed neither by snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness, from accomplishing their appointed course with all speed." And the Persians embraced freedom of religion, like they were Zoroastrian, which has a claim to be the world's first monotheistic religion. It was really Zoroastrianism that introduced us to the good evil dualism we all know so well, you know, God and Satan, or Perry and Voldemort. But the Persians weren't very concerned about converting people of the empire to their faith. Plus, Zoroastrianism forbids slavery, and so slavery was almost unheard of in the Persian Empire. All in all, if you had to live in the 5th century BCE, the Persian Empire was probably the best place to do it, unless, that is, you believe Herodotus and the Greeks. We all
Okay, so this is what we're going to write down about the Persian Empire. The Persians conquered Babylonians, right? Babylon, our last piece that we talked about with the Hammurabi. I like how he talks about how dreamy this empire is. The first empire to acknowledge different faiths, different languages of subjects, so it became a multi-ethnic empire. The empire was weakened from a failed invasion attempt of Greece. They fell to invading armies of Alexander the Great. And then I also appreciate how he talks about what we know about their history is written by the ones who conquered them. So we're going to end up seeing a lot when we get to Greek, and this is actually a Roman mosaic made of a Greek painting, but this is Alexander the Great conquering the Persians. And there's going to be a lot of these battle depictions of the Greeks battling the Persians because of the Persian Wars. All right, so they are famous for monumental architecture, which is what we are going to be talking about. All right, so Persepolis is just the capital of the Persian Empire, which is now in Iran. So here's a plan of what Persepolis looked like, and you guys have a version of this in your notes. It just means city of Persians. It was a citadel, which citadel just means a wall, like you can see this wall going all the way around. A fortified, encased city is a citadel. And like a lot of important architecture we're going to be talking about, this is going to be built up on a platform, so raised higher up for people to see. That's going to elevate its importance. So the citadel included residential quarters. So you can see here, people lived here. There was palaces here. All right, so how this relates to your notes. So this is an architectural plan of the citadel. And then these two like chunks right there is where this staircase is. This is like the entrance to the Apadana, which is the audience hall. By the way, when we're looking at architectural plans, what do all those circles represent? What are all these dots? All right, so those, when we see dots like that in a plan, those are going to be columns, and we're going to see a lot of those. All right, so the Apadana just means audience hall. This functioned where the king would have greeted his subjects, a large ceremonial building. Built even higher up than the citadel itself was on a second platform. So you would walk up the stairs to get to this higher elevated part of the architectural complex. So that again elevates the importance. This is considered a hypo style hall. And again, we're going to be seeing this coming up more. That just means the roof was supported by columns. So if you see architecture that is filled with circles, it's most likely a hypo style hall because it would have been filled with these columns. So these columns are about 78 feet tall, and right now there's only 14 out of 72 of these that are still standing today. On the back of your note page, I have a picture of what the top of these columns would have looked like. And the top of columns, it's called capitals. So capitals, tops of the columns were animals that represent royal authority and kingship. So it would have been these really large, massive bulls or lions. I think they're bulls. And it's really hard to get a sense of scale when you look at this. So I'm going to show you a little video clip of Loki killing somebody on top of one of these. Hang on, time out. Okay, this is from one of the Avenger movies. Look how big that thing is. Don't do it. No. All right. That guy doesn't make it. Back to the PowerPoint. All right, so this picture on the bottom left, this is like a reconstruction of what it would have looked like. So you have those tall columns, you have the capitals, those bulls on the top, you have this raised, elevated in the stairs walking up. All right, just another picture. So this is what the hall would have looked like, all of these giant bull capitals on the top, and it would have had a wooden roof on top of that. All right, last thing we are going to talk about are the reliefs. So you can see those carved into the wall of the stairs. All right, and so I'm trying to draw those lines on there to show you how the space is organized, and it's organized into registers. So the stairway that led to the Apadana was covered in relief carvings organized in registers. Content, what it's depicting. So we talked about the history of this empire and how they are multi-ethnic. This is depicting representatives from 23 different nations, all under the Persian rule, bringing gifts and tribute to the king. This is forming a processional scene. And I'm trying to emphasize processional scene because we're going to be seeing more processional scenes. I think in Greek, we have a couple processional scenes. All of them are wearing different costumes, suggesting their land of origin. So here we have them. It's almost like they're walking up the stairs. All right, form. You always want to relate artwork back to something previous to talk about the stylistic conventions or the tradition. How is it continuing or how is it breaking away? So we're continuing a tradition here of stylizing like creating the hair. The next slide, it's animals. If you look at the fur, this is from the same place, right? They're using these stylized patterned depictions of texture, of hair and fur, the beard. All right, but profile-wise, we only see one shoulder. They figured out not to put his other shoulder over here, so that's pretty exciting. So depicted in more naturalistic profile. All right, done.